This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hi, welcome to episode 291 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Cody, it's Sunday, April 14th, the last game of the Spurs season, first with Victor Wembanyama. Just finished watching the game. They had a victory over the lowly Detroit Pistons. Victor didn't play. Wemby didn't play.
Right.
I see you've moved on to the Stars already.
Yeah, Stars just won the division the other day and might get the 1 seed in the conference. So,
Well,
I'm ready to go with that.
Sure. I don't know anything about hockey. Well, I do know. I do know about hockey. I don't follow it at all. What was your takeaway from this wrap up of the Spurs season? The first time I've paid attention to the end of a season since I was talking to my wife about it. This is the first time I've gone in knowing it's the last game since Game 7 of the 2013 NBA Finals.
It's been a while. I had a little hope after that, but the sort of like DeRozan, Aldridge teams were okay, but I mean, it's funny because the Spurs got a lot better towards the end of the year and actually like played themselves to, because they were like bottom 3 in the league for like the entire year, and I think they're going to end up being the 5th worst team.
I think they're tied with Portland.
Yeah, and they were tied with I think Charlotte as well. And then Toronto's right underneath them. So, and it's funny because they not only got better towards the end of the year, but they started dropping players like flies, and then ended up beating the number 1 team in the league in Denver the other night. Now Denver is not getting the number 1 seed. Oklahoma locked that up today. So they caused chaos there. But no, it was fun. I mean, it was the most I've paid attention in a while. I mean, it got hard to like tune in every night the last like 3 or 4 years when the teams were garbage. And it was hard to stay motivated, but I watched most of the games. I went to like maybe 10 games or so, which is more than I've been to in years. I think I went to like 2 or 3 last year and like none the previous couple of years. So it was nice to be engaged again, and I think it's going to swing back around. I don't know how quickly. They're saying that they may hold off until 2025 to really make a bunch of moves, but we'll see what happens this offseason. But yeah, it was fun to be engaged again, even with the team that wasn't great. Every night was like must-watch TV with Wemby, just kind of like doing new stuff that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, racking up crazy stats and things that should get him Rookie of the Year, and will probably get him Rookie of the Year, and should get him Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens with that.
I mean, Rookie of the Year is a lock. Defensive Player of the Year, probably not, based on what like the pundits are saying, but he probably should get it.
Yeah. And I just got my Wemby City Edition jersey in finally.
Oh, nice.
Yesterday or 2 days ago. So didn't have a chance to wear it to a game, but fun times. Actually looking forward to it. And it's actually become one of those things where I'm like, do I want to go do this or do I want to watch the game? Because that's how it used to be, 15 years ago. It's like, oh shit, the game's on.
Man, a couple of years ago, even as recently as last year, you could go to like a bar in San Antonio and they did not have the Spurs game on. I remember one time
wild.
I wanted to go watch them, and I went to a BJ's after a movie because there's one right by Palladium. And I walked in and there's like 3 different games on, none of them the Spurs. There was a different NBA game on, but not the Spurs.
That is crazy.
And that was how it was here the last couple of years. And still to some degree kind of is a little hard to find them now. I think that will change, but like, it was really crazy to see just how tuned out people were, after, 25 years of winning, or it was like 22 playoff appearances or something like that.
It was like from 99 to whenever it was. So I think it was a little longer than 22.
Let's see. The playoff streak was 22. Yeah.
Oh, it was 22. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they got worse later, but I guess that's not the case. Yeah. it's easy to find on TV at least. I guess not so many national games this year, but that'll surely change.
And way more national games this year than last year, which was 0.
Yeah. Whoa, sorry, my cat's knocking my microphone around. All right, well, yeah, that's good to know. Something to look forward to. But
yeah, and now it's Stars playoff time, baby.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are they
Dallas for a game?
Are they really good, or are they just like do they have a chance to win the Stanley Cup, or
they do? Yeah, I mean they should get the top seed in the West. It's weird because so the best team in the league, like in the entire league, it wins what's called the President's Trophy. That means you're in first place in all of the NHL, and there is a curse that's attached to the President's Trophy where the trophy's been awarded 36 times, but only 8 of those teams have won the Stanley Cup out of that, which is a crazy number considering the best team in the league loses most of the time. That's and it happened last year with Boston, where Boston had the best regular season ever in hockey history, and they lost in the first round.
Oh, gotta love those stats. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and move on to reviews. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up, we have Civil War.
Citizens of America, people of the Florida Alliance, and the Western forces of Texas and California will be welcomed back to these United States as soon as their illegal secessionist government is deposed.
You don't know what side they're fighting for.
Someone's trying to kill us. We are trying to kill them.
This is the latest film from director Alex Garland, who made Ex Machina, Annihilation as a director. I never saw Min.
I didn't either.
I've heard very, very polarizing things about that. I wasn't a huge fan of Ex Machina. I know you were. I don't remember what you thought of Annihilation.
I didn't love it.
Okay, it's definitely crazy trippy, but this is, I guess, his most mainstream movie to date. I would say is fair.
At least as a director, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, he's written, 28 Days Later, a bunch of stuff like that. Anyway, tell us about Civil War, Cody, and what you thought of it.
Sure. So, I mean, I think this will be an interesting conversation, because I think this movie has been met with a lot of discourse this weekend from people who have seen the movie, and basically, the simple premise of the movie is that the United States has gotten to a point where they have completely divided. States have seceded, and they are basically at war with one another. And the movie follows a handful of basically war journalists as they tell stories, photograph the war from the battle lines, the front lines, But that's basically the movie. And I think the biggest thing to know about Civil War going in is that I think it is a different movie than what people think it is. And I think it's a different movie than what is being sort of sold.
The
marketing.
Trailer makes it look like an action movie.
Right.
Which
right. An action
movie.
A war movie, a sort of political what if kind of thing. And it's really not that at all, which is, I think, now that's not a detriment to the movie. It's just I think people need to have the right set of expectations going in, and it's it's not the fault of the movie. It is sort of the fault of the marketing, in my opinion, that they're kind of selling a different thing. But Regardless, that doesn't change what's in the movie. So basically, I think it would be fair to characterize the first 2 acts of the movie as like kind of like a road trip movie, where you've got like these 4 characters on the road. I can't, hold on. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear myself for a second.
No, it's all right.
And the first 2 acts are these characters on the road, traveling throughout this sort of war-torn United States, trying to get to essentially the White House to interview the president. And then the third act is sort of like placing you at their destination, and then you get like that's where you get sort of the war movie part, is in that third act. And so what you really get at the end of the day is a movie about journalism, and a journalism movie more so than anything else. I will let you speak to the journalism side because I think that you have a more interesting take, I'm sure, on that than I do. But I do think that its journalism story is effective, and I think I think when it's working at its best, it's when it's hitting sort of the themes of not only like war journalism, but just sort of like war in general, talking about and displaying sort of the way that war sort of strips people and things of their humanity, and especially showing these journalists, like basically just, pointing the camera in the middle of carnage, being unbothered by what they're seeing and things. And I think the best display of this, I think, comes in the juxtaposition of what I think are the 2 best characters in the movie, and the 2 best performances, which are the characters played by Kirsten Dunst and Kaylee Spaney, who are basically, Kirsten Dunst is like a very famous war photojournalist who has been in the business for a long time, and as such has found herself to be very numb and jaded to what's going on around her. And then you have Kaylee Spaney, who is a younger sort of like aspiring photojournalist who sort of tags along on their journey, who is very much like a go-getter trying to get established kind of thing. And the juxtaposition between the 2 of them and the way that they approach journalism, and just sort of like Kaylee Spaney, the way that she plays the sort of surprise at like actually getting thrown into this stuff and what she's seeing, and she still has her humanity to some degree, but it seems like it's left Kirsten Dunst's character a long time ago. I think those elements are when the movie's really working, and I think those are the 2 best cast members. The cast across the board is really good. I also really like Stephen McKinley Henderson in the movie, who is sort of playing like the veteran journalist of the bunch, the sort of elder statesman, who's also along on the road trip, and I think gets a lot of good stuff to do. And then, of course, you get, smaller stuff. You see Jesse Plemons in the trailer, and Jesse Plemons is probably in one of the more memorable scenes of the movie.
Might be able to guess he's playing a menacing weirdo.
Yeah. Who knew he had that gear, right?
I love him, though. I love him. I think he's great.
He's literally great in everything. He's become like one of the better character actors that exists right now. And this does no different to change that. So I mentioned that the movie has been featuring a lot of discourse over the weekend, and I think this is where, in my opinion, I think this is where a lot of people are either like getting hung up on things, or maybe even this might be a determining factor of how well the movie works for you. But not only is the movie like not really like political in that sense, or it's not about like the war, but it's also like purposefully ambiguous about its details. So like if I say like, what if America became so divided that it went to war with one another? That's about the extent the movie goes with that story. Like that's about the most detail that you're filled in on. It's not giving you context as to like why there is a war going on, how it got to that point, which side is which. Even when you're sort of in the midst of the carnage, you're not always entirely sure like who you're stumbling upon along this journey and what side they're on or anything like that. It's sort of purposefully opaque for most of it. And I think that's people's mileage is going to vary on that. for me personally, and I've gone back and forth on this a lot, I don't think I need the movie necessarily to be about like what the conflict is, or like go into the conflict of the sides, or even for the movie to take a stance politically, because it definitely doesn't. But I feel like I don't need that. But I do feel this weird feeling when watching it that it is sort of it's presenting like this idea of like, being, I don't even know if neutral is the right word, but like, not doling out the details, but it also contextualizes a couple of things that it doesn't like follow through on, if that makes sense. So, it is ambiguous, but also there's references to Antifa. There's a reference to Charlottesville. There's this notion that like Texas and California are working together, which, anyone in America knows that would never happen. But yet this movie presents it as a thing that's happening. And then also just the movie is set in America, and it's about America being divided. So for me, my reaction to it was sort of like, this is provocative, but it's not following through on anything. Like it doesn't have anything to say about those elements. So for me, it's this sense of like trying to have your cake and eat it too, by like peppering these details in, but not with any kind of substance to it. And so for me, it keeps the movie working on any other level than a photojournalism movie or a journalism movie just at large. So the product that you get, I think, is good. I think as a journalism movie, it's good, but I don't think it works for me on any other level. Even as a, like, what if this actually happened, or, kind of level, because, for me, again, like, it doesn't have anything to say regarding like discourse even, or divide. And that's the thing that like, that like doesn't connect for me. Now, there could be an argument that it's not trying to be, and I think that's valid and fair. But for me, the journalism stuff is the only stuff that really works for me.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I would agree with that, just because I think that's the story it's trying to tell. The other stuff is background. It's world building, and that's it. And I see where that is troubling to a lot of people. Like, I understand it. Mm-hmm. I understand the troubling, because and maybe that's movie going habits. Maybe that's a misleading trailer. Anything you can think of. That's why people are coming away from this feeling like it doesn't have any substance other than kind of playing its cards too close to the vest, which, as a movie that is intended to be about, these war photojournalists, I mean, that's the attitude to take, because that's the attitude that they're presented as having. And, not as some sort of like, badge of honor or like weird centrism sort of thing, which I've seen it be argued as well. Like, the idea of this is to be the observer. Like, Kirsten Dunst has a line in the film that's something, I can't remember exactly what it is, but something along the lines of, we take these photos so the people back home can decide. Mm-hmm. Like, they're documenting the horrors, and that's it. At that cost, the cost of that is the humanity of the characters. And, they're portrayed, all the journalists are portrayed as kind of, what's the right word? Like, blasé about this stuff to an extent. They're joking. Some are seen joking around with the soldiers after a particularly bloody battle. There's a lot of gallows humor, I guess is the right word, and which is a real thing in newsrooms and things, that when it gets tough, that it's set in this fictional American Civil War that purposefully Garland leaves, like, he scatters these things around that, but he jumbles them up in a way so you're not reading a pure allegory from this.
Right.
You're not extrapolating what's happening today out to this film. And I think that's probably, if I had to guess, and this is purely anecdotal, and purely by the company I keep, the people that I've spoken to that take umbrage to this premise are the ones that feel like this needs to be some sort of dire warning. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's what the movie sets out to be at all. Like this movie needs to sound the alarm on, what could happen in an American Civil War. But that's, and to me, and I've said this to you a couple times, that's criticizing the movie for not being the movie you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's necessarily a fair criticism. I understand the ambiguity is off-putting, and I think it's purposefully supposed to be off-putting. I think that's the point of the film, is to not have this kind of clear through line as to what exactly is going on. I think the movie does pick its good guys and bad guys, but the problem is, I guess for a lot of people, you don't know what the motivation is. You don't know what the context of the session was, what the context of, this is a president who gives himself a third term. Mm-hmm. So you don't know the context of it. So it feels incomplete if you're looking for that sort of movie. But once I heard it was about, it was essentially a journalism movie, and I went into it knowing that and enjoyed it for what it was. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but it is pretty harrowing at times. I think the Jesse Plemons scene is really, really good. Kind of the climax of the second act there. I don't know. I mean, I understand that line of thinking, but I do think it's a little flawed.
Well, and again, like I think we've had this back and forth privately, but like, I think that it's not exactly fair either for people to be able to tout its ambiguity as a strength, because a lot of people are. The takes that are really high on this are touting the ambiguity as a strength, but to tout it as something that kept that was a deficit to it wouldn't be fair. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's
sure
fair.
Sure, but I've seen more criticism of it not being like, oh, it's not. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like most of the takes wanted it to be like, no, we want this to be about like if this particular America right now was divided.
I think that most of the critiques have been that because it's ambiguous, it doesn't have a lot to say. And the argument, I guess, is it trying to say anything? And
that's what I'm getting. That's what I took away from it. Like, no, it's not trying to say anything. Like,
right.
It's kind of a screenwriting 101 thing. Like, you have two characters having a conversation. Like, why put them in the living room when you could put them on a Ferris wheel?
But it's also, but for me, the issue becomes like, and I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but like, it is peppered with enough stuff to place it in a time and place with actual references to actual things that it feels like a teeny little cop out to not to give it some texture without like following through or saying anything on it. That's the piece that kind of I don't love. And then also for me, like, again, it just doesn't work on any other level. Like, it may work for other people, but not for me on any other level.
I mean, I think it works on the only level it needed to work at for me. Mm-hmm. Going to the peppering of real world stuff, maybe that's a tactical error. Maybe that's a tactical error on Garland's part, because you have this, your immediate, like, one of the first lines in the trailer is the Texas and California alliance. And I remember when the trailer was released, people were like, what the fuck? How would that even happen?
Yeah.
And that's the point that I guess Garland was making with with this setting and everything, is that, this isn't the revolution that you think it is, mm-hmm. like that you would be expecting. And I don't know if people are just like, if you're inclined to see the schism in America as something that's the fault of people that would attempt to overthrow the government, but the movie has different ideas than that. And, mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think that discourse is going to kind of follow this movie for the near future. Maybe, mm-hmm. When things are different, it'll settle down. I kind of feel like I feel a little bit of the same way I felt after seeing Zero Dark 30, mm-hmm. And like loving it, and then seeing it released to the public later and each side staking its claim on it when it's not about taking sides at all.
Right.
I don't know. It's a disappointment to me, but I have to say that I expected it. I really, really enjoyed the movie. But I have to say that like I see everybody's complaint. I could totally see. Like I don't think it's crazy to have this complaint. I do think it's misunderstood to have that complaint. But maybe that's the movie's fault. I think a lot of it is the marketing's fault. Anybody that knows anything about this movie was like, this is going to be a badass American Civil War movie.
Yeah.
But alas. Anyway, what's your grade for Civil War, Cody?
Well, I mean, my response is still positive to it. And one of the things I didn't mention earlier was I think just from a technical standpoint, it's like an incredibly well crafted movie. I think its cinematography is great, especially in its establishment of like truly disturbing imagery. I think that I saw it in IMAX, and I don't think that the IMAX photography is particularly important, but I do highly recommend seeing it in a good, like a theater with good audio. The IMAX theater here at Palladium has like really great sound, and it was cranked up, and this movie's usage of sound is like fantastic. I mean, like the third act is just like chaos in it, and it really plays well in a loud theater, and then its usage of like gunfire I think is like particularly harrowing in this context, and especially its usage of like gunfire sound. So for me, like I think it's a good but not great movie, and I leave it at a B for me.
Yeah, I'm going B+. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think Dunst is really, really good in this movie, and Spaney is great too. I kind of wish, it was a little more, there's a little too few precious things about it, like Spaney's character using film, things like that. But overall, I think it was really great. Open number 1 this week, I believe. Is it a record for A24?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to our next movie, Arcadian.
There are those who believe they came after the pollution people caused. And they're here to cleanse the planet of the human race. So we'll all become extinct. I have to stay vigilant. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll meet you right here before the sun sets behind that hill.
It was good to see you.
You're late!
Sorry, I lost track of time.
Are we safe?
Yes.
Are we secure?
Yes. Thank you for this food we are about to receive. Thank you for bringing us together as a family.
Here we have the latest in the Nicolas Cage horror movie streak here.
Yeah.
This one is kind of more of a, I don't know what you call it, like a sci-fi horror film.
Yeah, sort of like an apocalyptic kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, tell us about Arcadian, Cody, what you thought about it.
Yeah, so Arcadian follows a father played by Nicolas Cage, and his 2 sons played by Jaden Martell and Maxwell Jenkins, who basically there's some sort of apocalyptic thing happening where there's only a few amount of people left on Earth, and in the evenings there's something stirring in the night that's coming to get them, and so basically one night one of the kids goes out and like doesn't come home, and so that invites the like a little bit of chaos where Nicolas Cage goes out to try to find one of the sons while the other one tries to hold down the fort at home, and that sort of kicks off a series of events that just becomes sort of like a survivalist horror kind of thing, fighting back against monsters of sorts. So it's interesting because yes, it's Nicolas Cage. It's a Nicolas Cage-led horror movie, but Nicolas Cage is really not in it all that much. He gets sort of sidelined in the middle of the movie and never really returns. And interestingly, like it feels like the most straightforward Nicolas Cage performance in a long time, where, you know, like even something he was really good in, like Pig, which I think is maybe like his best work in the last, you know, decade or whatever. You know, there's still a little bit of like Nick Cage stuff going on there.
Yeah.
You know, and I honestly think that Nick Cage has been having like a really interesting past decade. I mean, between Pig and between the one where he played himself that I can't think of right now.
Oh,
the title.
With Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the title of that movie is either, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing, but like, but between that and then I didn't like the movie Mandy, but I know that a lot of people do, and I like that performance. This one is like toned down and straightforward. Like I don't like all of these other movies, you can tell Nick Cage is having fun. This movie has no fun in it at all in any way. Just sort of by design. I don't know. This movie did absolutely nothing for me. It started off, it was really off-putting from the get-go too, because the movie has like a lot of handheld cinematography in it that just was driving me nuts. I do not like the handheld style of this movie. Like every shot is like shaky and there's a lot of like whip pans and stuff going on, like back and forth, and I just don't like the visual style of it at all. There's like a love story that kind of permeates throughout that I just don't. Again, I never bought into. I think that the focus of the love story also sidelines Jaden Martell, who is just sort of like a blank slate of a character throughout this, who is just like his one characteristic is like smart. And that's about it. And like as you watch this movie, I think the motivations of its characters just don't ever make much sense. Why is one of them trying to get away constantly, and then why does them make a decision midway through that kind of separates himself, and it just everything just fell flat for me. I will say the one thing that is kind of interesting is that the design of the creature is kind of unique, and I think the creature has like a unique characteristic to it that I feel like I've never seen anything like that before. And I don't, it's weird and it's like effectively creepy, but it's just this really dull family story at the center of everything, and like the one thread that could hold it together is Nicolas Cage, who again is sidelined for what feels like more than half of the movie. And so you're taking away like your biggest magnetic actor, the glue that holds together your two main characters, and putting them unconscious on a bed for 2 acts of the movie or whatever. So yeah, for me, this movie just doesn't really work on any level. I think it's dull. I don't think it's like any fun. I think it's just a dime a dozen apocalyptic thing with like a kind of cool creature element to it, and nothing else.
I'll add to that. I agree with all of that, but you have Nick Cage, and he's not, like you said, he's like, he could have been anybody. He didn't have to be Nick Cage. Like he's bringing no Nicolas Cage to this.
Wow.
It was the unbearable weight of massive talent. That's
right. Yes.
Anyway, there's no reason that this is Nick Cage. You're kind of in echoing your sort of complaints about Civil War. This movie has zero setup. Like there's clearly something that happened. Nick Cage, like his sons, he stumbles across them in the apocalypse. Like, but there's not enough there to know, like, was he planning to find them? Were they abandoned? What happened here? And it sets this up, but that never pays off. Like, this movie didn't have to be set like that. The prologue of the film, there's like an extended take of a handheld sequence, Nick Cage running through what appears to be a very European town.
I believe it was shot in Ireland. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the geography is rather ambiguous here, because it does seem like a Irish countryside.
Yeah, Dublin
what you're seeing
is where it was filmed.
But that whole prologue has no impact on the rest of the story whatsoever.
Right.
Like the story, and then there's no nothing really happens in the movie. Like there's no arc. And I think a lot of that's dulled by, Nick Cage's character makes a decision late in the film when he's not sidelined anymore that I think would have been more powerful had he not been sidelined.
Right.
Yeah. As it stands now, he just sort of shows back up and does something, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. I was not a fan of this at all.
But what that also prevents is like any kind of understanding of the parent-child relationship here. Right. Because what you really get is like the relationship between two brothers, but like their relationship is kind of frosty where like you don't get the sense that like they're like being tied together really makes like any difference for them aside from just being alive. Like they're not like fighting for each other or fighting to keep the family together. And with Cage sidelined for most of it, I don't think you get like a father-son kind of element or let's hold the family together. Like you only get that in very small doses early on. And then the rest of it is just like one brother is off doing one thing, the other is off doing another. And I don't know. I just like a movie like this shouldn't be so boring. And I think the closest thing that reminded me of is like A Quiet Place. I think it's sort of trying to be A Quiet Place adjacent. But to your point, I mean the only reason to hire Nicolas Cage is to get something like specific, to get something like weird or kooky or big or a risk or bold or something. And here, like that literally could have been any like character actor. Like it could have been anyone. And it's just such a waste of that. And yeah, this movie premiered at South by Southwest, last month, and it's going on Shudder later, and it has like good reviews. It's at like 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, or 85, and I don't get it. I like it's not a terrible movie. Like it's not like I mean I've seen worse horror movies easily, but like it has like almost nothing going for it.
Yeah, it feels like it's all set up. Mm-hmm. And it never pays off. I think it looks good. I don't mind the handheld stuff. I think the design of the creatures is good. There's a really unique thing about it that makes it extra off-putting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it either needs more. It needed Nicolas Cage more, or you're gonna have to fill me in on what the fuck is happening. Like, you're gonna have to, like, this has got to be a little less ambiguous. Well, because it doesn't stand on its own.
Well, and the funny thing too is like it's one moment of exposition is like designed to give you the least amount of information possible. Yeah. Because it's like it features two characters like just like because it's cute deciding to try to explain their situation in 10 seconds or less. It's such a stupid
Yeah. Anyway, what's your grade for Arcadian, Cody?
I'm giving it a C. Does nothing for me. I have seen worse movies. I like the character design. It is a unforgivable misuse of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I'm at a C too. I wasn't into it at all. It is relatively short though, so you're not gonna be sitting there for 2 hours with nothing happening. All right, that's gonna do it for this week. Next week, I forget what's happening. Is it Challengers?
Not quite yet.
Quite yet. Damn it.
So next week we have Abigail, the new horror movie.
What we just talked about.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we started with Radio Silence, the duo who directed one of my favorite movies, horror movies of the last few years, Ready or Not. They also directed the two most recent Scream movies. And so that movie is coming out, as well as God damn it, another Guy Ritchie movie is coming out this week.
Oh, yeah.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is also coming out this week, which God bless Guy Ritchie for making an obscene amount of movies.
Working his ass off.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. All right. If you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. You can find us on Twitter @CineSnob, Facebook, CineSnob.net, YouTube.com/CineSnob. Anything else, Cody, before we go?
No, I think that's basically it.
All right. On that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.